Okay, our last thing is our objective 4D, which is solving by other methods, non-factoring methods. So the first one is solving by square roots. I'm going to change up my color just a little bit. Okay, so we have 8 plus 64 x squared is equal to 12. Okay, so when you're solving using square roots, you know you can use square roots to solve because you have an x squared, and that's all you have. You have an x squared and a constant term. Super easy, easiest way is to solve using square roots. So I subtract 8 because I'm just solving like a regular equation. I'm getting my squared term by itself. 12 minus 8 is 4. Divide by 64. Divide by 64. X squared is equal to 4 over 64. Now you can simplify beforehand. I'm not going to. I'm just going to take the square root of each side. So when I take the square root of each side, remember it's plus and minus, so x is equal to the plus or minus the square root of 4 over 64. X is equal to plus or minus the square root of 4 over the square root of 64. It's the same thing. You don't have to show all this work. I'm just telling you guys. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 64 is 8. So x is equal to plus or minus 1/4. And so you can write it like this. It's going to be negative 1/4 or positive 1/4. Okay. Next one, same thing. 9m squared is equal to negative 2. If I can get a squared term by itself, I can solve. Divide by 9, divide by 9. I have m squared is equal to negative 2 over 9. I take the square root of each side. M squared is equal to plus or minus square root of negative 2 over the square root of 9. And I simplify both. So m squared is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 2. While I can take the square root of negative 2, I can take an I out. And the 2 stays inside. So it's going to be I radical 2 over 3. And so this is your answer, plus or minus, sorry. I don't know why I left the squared there. There we go. Plus or minus I radical 2 over 3. And there you go, square root of 3 is 9. Okay, number 3, same idea. We have a squared term that I can get by itself. Add 9, x minus 3 squared is equal to 27 plus minus 36. Take the square root of each side because I have my squared by itself. So I have x minus 3 is equal to plus or minus 6. You can think of it this way because this is a 6 here and that's simplified. Actually, I'll go back because some of you may be confused where the 6 came from. This is 36. I simplify my radical. X minus 3 equals plus or minus 6. And I say, okay, either x minus 3 can be negative 6 or x minus 3 can be positive 6. Add 3 to each side. X is equal to negative 3. Add 3 to each side. X is equal to 9. And so negative 3, 9. Okay. Next one. 7 times a plus 2 squared minus 1 is equal to 440. I add 1. 7 times a plus 2 squared is equal to 441. Divide by 7. A plus 2 squared is equal to 63. I then take the square root because I want to get rid of the squared. So I have a plus 2 is equal to plus or minus radical 63. Before I move on to see if I want to split it and have two separate answers, I simplify. So 63, it's not negative or anything like that. Divide by 3 is 21. Divide by 3 is 7. And then 7 is prime. And so it's going to be a plus 2 is equal to plus or minus 3 on the outside, radical 7. I don't really need to split this, but I am going to rewrite it. I subtract 2. A is equal to negative 2 plus or minus 3 radical 7. And so it would either be negative 2 plus or minus 3 radical 7, or you can separate it. It's going to be negative 2 minus 3 radical 7 and negative 2 plus 3 radical 7. And either one is acceptable. The fifth one, it says solve using the quadratic formula. When you're solving using the quadratic formula, first thing you need to do is you set it equal to 0. So this is 6n squared minus 4 equals 5n. I subtract 5n, 6n squared minus 5n minus 4 is equal to 0. I know my a value is 6, my b value is negative 5, and my c value is negative 4. Okay, I use the formula. You guys should have it written somewhere. X is equal to negative 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 5 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 4 all over 2 times 6. X is equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 plus 4 times 6 times 4 plus 96 all over 12. X is equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of 121 over 12. I always simplify first, and then I see if I need to break this apart. So this is going to be 5 plus or minus 11 over 12. Okay, so now I'm going to have two separate answers for sure. I have to write this. It's going to be 5 minus 11 over 12, or you could have 5 plus 11 over 12. 5 minus 11 is going to be negative 7, or negative, I don't even know how math works, negative 6. There we go. Negative 6 over 12, which I simplify to be negative 1/2. This one right here is 16 over 12, which you need to simplify, so you divide by the greatest common factor, which is 4, and this is going to be 4/3. And there's your answer. Okay. Number 15. Same thing. 7m squared plus 8m minus 6 is equal to negative 2m. I add 2m to each side. 7m squared plus 10m minus 6 is equal to 0. A is going to be 7, B is going to be 10, C is going to be negative 6. And so we have m is equal to negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 7 times negative 6 all over 2 times 7. M is equal to negative 10 plus or minus 100 minus 168 all over 14. M is equal to negative 10 plus or minus negative 68 over 14. I take my negative 68 and I'm going to simplify it over here. So negative 68 has a square root of negative 1, which becomes I. Okay, now I break down my 68. My 68 divided by 2 is 34, divided by 2 is 17. 17 is prime, so I just write down my 17. So I know 68, the square root of 68, is equal to 2 radical 17. So when I write this, this is going to be plus or minus. I have a 2, then comes the I, then comes the 17, all over 14. I notice something. Okay, you have to find the GCF of your numbers. Ignore what's in the radical because it's not on the outside. It's not a factor. 17 is not a factor of all of these. I do know that the GCF of and always use positives, you can use Desmos, 10, 2, and 14 is going to be 2. So I divide each part by 2. And so I have negative 5 plus or minus I radical 17 all over 7. And that's my final answer. Okay, 2 more. So I have 2k squared plus 3k is equal to negative 9k plus 2. I add 9k, 2k squared plus 12k is equal to 2. Subtract 2, I have 2k squared plus 12k minus 2 is equal to 0. A is equal to 2, B is equal to 12, C is equal to negative 2. And so I have k is equal to negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 12 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 2 all over 2 times 2. Okay. K is equal to negative 12 plus or minus 144 plus 16 all over 4. K is equal to negative 12 plus or minus 160 over 4. I simplify. I'm going to come up here and simplify my 160. So 160 divided by 2 is 80 divided by 2 is 40 divided by 2 is 20 divided by 2 is 10 divided by 2 is 5 divided by 5 is 1. Okay, and I look, I know that this is a 4, I know the square root of 4 is 2. This is a 4, I know the square root of 4 is 2. Those are all parts that I can take I can take the square root of. I'm left with 10 in here, and so I simplify this. This is going to be negative 12 plus or minus 4 radical 10 over 4. Last thing I look at is there a greatest common factor of these 3 terms? Okay, and so what is your greatest common factor of 12, 4, and 4? That's going to actually be 4. So I divide each part by 4. So I end up with negative 3 plus or minus radical 10, or 1 radical 10, over 1. This is the way I'm going to be writing it, because you don't need the ones there. Negative 3 plus or minus radical 10. And that's your final answer for that one. Last one of these is a quadratic equation was solved using substitution. And so we have our negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 7 all over 2 times 2. And so now I have to identify each of the parts. I know that my quadratic formula is, so this is x is equal to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So this is going to be, so I'm looking at this, I don't know why I'm trying to rewrite this, and so I try to identify a. So a is here and here. Well, what's in those places? Well, I have a 2 here and a 2 here, so my a value must be 2. I have b, okay? B is here, B is here, B is here. And so I notice that my b is a positive 3 here. So this is going to be 3. And last but not least, my c, well, my c is here and my c is here, so c must be equal to negative 7. I know a quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c, so I just replace that. I know a is 2, so this is going to be 2x squared. B is 3, so that's going to be 3x, and c is negative 7. And so there is my quadratic from the quadratic formula. And that's about it. Or no, that's about it for that one. Okay, last two, it says draw a quadratic coordinate plane that has the roots -4 and 5. I look, and I'm looking at -4, and I'm looking at 2, 4, 5. And so all I'm doing is I'm finding, I'm going to draw a nice curvy quadratic where it crosses at those 2 points, -4 and 5. And yours can go concave down, it can go concave up, it doesn't really matter. And then the last one, it says find the solutions. I look at this, I see it intersects at 2 and 4, and so the solutions have to be 2, 4. And that's about it.